There's a lake about 30 minutes outside of the small town I grew up in. Most people in the area call it Hollows Point, though I don't think that's the official name. It's surrounded by dense forest and has no formal trail leading to it, which means only the locals really know how to find it. I spent countless summer days fishing there as a kid with my grandpa, and even as I got older, I'd still go alone sometimes just to clear my head. About a year ago, I decided to go back out there for the first time in a while. Life had gotten complicated, and I was desperate for some quiet. I figured I'd fish a little, maybe even camp overnight if it felt safe enough. I loaded up my gear, drove down the cracked old service road that leads most of the way there, and then hiked the last mile through the woods until I reached the water. It looked just like I remembered. Calm, empty, untouched. I set up camp near a familiar spot on the south side of the lake, a little clearing with a few flat stones perfect for sitting and casting a line. By sunset, I had a small fire going and a couple of trout on a stringer. I was the only person out there, or at least I thought I was. As the sun dipped behind the trees, something strange happened. I started hearing faint voices from across the water. It was hard to tell how many people there were. Maybe two, maybe more, but I could tell they were speaking in low, hushed tones. I froze for a second, wondering if someone else had decided to camp out here too, but I hadn't seen any other gear or lights on my way in. I got up and scanned the tree line on the opposite shore. There was nothing. No lanterns, no flashlights, no movement at all. But the voices didn't stop. If anything, they were getting louder, though still too far away for me to make out what they were saying. After about 10 minutes, the voices just stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. I told myself it was probably just echoing from another campsite, maybe farther through the woods than I realized. Still, I felt a bit uneasy. I decided not to sleep in the tent that night, just in case. Instead, I sat by the fire with my back against a tree, listening. Sometime around midnight, I started dozing off. But then I heard something else. Footsteps. Not the kind of random snapping of twigs you'd expect from raccoons or deer. These were deliberate, steady, slow. They were coming from the woods behind me. I didn't move. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might shake the ground. The footsteps stopped just at the edge of the tree line. I couldn't see anything in the dark, even with the fire still going. I reached for the flashlight I'd left beside my tackle box and switched it on, aiming it toward the sound. Nothing. No one was there. I got up and took a few cautious steps toward the trees, scanning left and right. Still nothing. Just when I was about to turn back, I heard it again, only this time from the opposite direction. Something was circling me, watching me. I backed toward the fire and stayed there for the rest of the night, gripping my knife and scanning the dark for movement. The voices didn't return, and neither did the footsteps. But the woods felt different, like the silence was forced, unnatural. At first light, I packed everything up. I didn't bother cooking breakfast or trying for one more cast. I just wanted out. The hike back felt longer than I remembered. Every snapped branch or gust of wind set me on edge. But here's the part that really got me. When I got back to my car, I found something resting on the windshield. At first, I thought it was a pine cone or maybe some leaves that had blown down, but when I got closer, I froze. It was a stringer of fish, 3 trout lined up neatly, still dripping wet. I hadn't caught those. They were fresh, their gills still pink, as if they'd just been pulled from the water. I looked around, heart pounding. The road was still empty, and the woods were silent again. I didn't know what to make of it. I hadn't seen another soul the entire time I was out there, and yet, someone or something had followed me, watched me, and left me a parting gift. I left the fish behind, got in my car, and didn't look back until I hit pavement again. I haven't returned to Hollows Point since that day, and I don't plan to. Every so often I'll dream about the voices, about the footsteps behind the trees, and I'll wake up in a cold sweat, the echo of that silence still ringing in my ears. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I hadn't stayed by the fire, if I had wandered into the woods to chase the sound, or if I'd unzipped that tent and stepped outside. Maybe the stringer of fish was just a warning. Or worse, a lure. Whatever's out there, it doesn't want to be alone. And now that it knows I've heard it, I don't think it's finished with me. I never believed the rumors about the house at the end of Mayfield Road. Every small town has a place like it. The one you dare your friends to break into on Halloween. The one the older kids swear is haunted or cursed or worse. But when my brother Marcus bought the property last year, I figured all those stories would finally be put to rest. He got it cheap, of course. Places like that always come with a low price and a long list of warnings nobody really listens to. He planned to fix it up, flip it, maybe even move in if it wasn't too much of a money pit. He asked me to help with the cleanup before renovations, so one Saturday in early fall, I drove out there with a box of gloves, masks, and cleaning supplies. It looked worse than I remembered. The roof sagged, the shutters were barely hanging on, and the entire place smelled like damp wood and mildew. Marcus was already inside when I got there, digging through what used to be the living room, piling broken furniture into a corner. We spent most of the day clearing out the front rooms. Dust thick as sand covered everything, and the walls were stained with water damage. Around noon, Marcus said he was going to check the basement. I didn't think much of it until he came back upstairs looking pale. He told me there was a room under the basement that wasn't on the floor plan, a second door at the far end of the basement, made of old wood and reinforced with metal bolts. He said it looked like it had been sealed shut at some point, but something, or someone, had opened it. I told him not to mess with it, joked about asbestos or rats or some other unpleasant surprise. But Marcus had always been curious to a fault, and by the time I followed him down, he had already pried the door open with a crowbar. The air coming out of that room was wrong. Thick, sour, almost metallic. The light from the single bulb in the basement didn't reach inside. It just sat there, a black square of open space, swallowing the light. We stood there for a while. Neither of us said anything. Then Marcus stepped in. I waited, flashlight in hand, until he called for me. His voice echoed strangely, like the room was much larger than it should have been. I followed him in, and immediately I knew something wasn't right. The walls were covered in symbols, carved deep into the stone like someone had taken a chisel to them. The air was colder in there too, like it hadn't been touched in decades. In the middle of the room was a wooden chair. Old, rotting, bolted to the floor. That's when Marcus found the book. It was small, leather-bound, and lying on the floor near the chair. No title, just a worn black cover and pages that looked older than anything else in the house. He opened it, flipped through a few pages, and frowned. Latin, he said. I think. I wanted to leave. Every instinct in my body was telling me to get out of there, but Marcus, like always, pushed forward. He shoved the book into his backpack and said we'd look at it later. That night, I had the worst dreams I can remember. I was standing in that same basement room, but it was pitch black. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. And then, out of the shadows, something stepped forward. I couldn't see its face, I only remember the sound it made. It wasn't a voice, not in the way we understand it. It was more like a vibration in my skull, like it was speaking directly to my bones. When I woke up, I called Marcus. No answer. I tried all day. Texts, calls, even drove back to the house. His truck was there, but he wasn't. The front door was wide open, and when I stepped inside, it felt colder than it should have, like the air had been sucked out. I found his backpack sitting on the kitchen counter. The book was gone. There were muddy footprints on the floor, leading from the basement door to the front hallway. But they weren't Marcus's boots. They were bare. Human, but wrong. Too long. Toes too pointed. I followed them to the front porch, and then they just stopped. Right there. As if whoever made them had simply disappeared. I called the cops, filed a report, told them Marcus had gone missing. They looked through the house, asked a few questions, and left. They chalked it up to someone walking off, maybe getting lost in the woods. But I know my brother. He didn't just leave. That was a month ago. Since then, I've been having the same dream, over and over. The basement, the chair, the symbols on the wall, the sound in my head. Sometimes I wake up with dirt under my fingernails. Once, I found a footprint, bare, too long, just outside my bedroom window. I don't know what was in that book. I don't know what Marcus read, but I haven't stopped hearing the sound. It's with me now, all the time, whispering just beneath the surface of my thoughts, calling. I haven't told many people about this. I'm afraid to. Afraid it'll make it worse. But if you're reading this or hearing it and you ever come across an old house with a hidden door in the basement, don't open it. Whatever's locked behind that kind of door was sealed for a reason. And some doors should never be opened. I used to work night security at a self-storage facility in Southern Oregon. It was a quiet job, boring mostly. Just me, a golf cart, and rows of metal units lined up like tiny garages stretching out in every direction. I'd do my rounds every hour, check the locks, look for signs of break-ins. Nothing ever happened. That changed about 7 months into the job. It started with a simple maintenance request. One of the tenants in Unit 231 said their door wouldn't open. I went out during my shift to check it. The lock wasn't jammed or rusted, it was brand new. But the door itself felt stuck, like something was pressing against it from the inside. It groaned when I pulled but didn't budge. I reported it to the day crew and forgot about it. 3 days later, the day guy called in sick, so I picked up his shift. While doing a routine inspection, I noticed that Unit 231 was now wide open. The door rolled all the way up, and the light inside flickered like a dying bulb. I radioed in, figuring someone had finally fixed it, and walked up to take a look. That's when I realized something strange. There was nothing inside, completely empty. No boxes, no furniture, not even dust. Just a cold concrete floor and those flickering overhead lights. Still, I swear I could feel something in there. Like I wasn't alone. That quiet pressure in the back of your neck, the kind that tells you you're being watched even when nobody's around. I backed out and shut the door. That same night, just past 2 a.m., I was riding the golf cart near the back row when I saw something move out of the corner of my eye. I stopped the cart and killed the engine. Silence. Then I heard it, faint scratching coming from somewhere nearby. I walked along the row, listening. It was soft, like fingernails dragging across metal. It led me to Unit 231 again. I crouched by the door. The scratching continued, consistent, like someone trying to claw their way out. My first thought was raccoon. Maybe something got stuck in there when the door was open. I knocked once. The scratching stopped instantly. I stood there for a while, trying to decide if I was imagining things. Then, just as I started to turn away, a low thud hit the inside of the door, hard enough to rattle it on the track. I jumped back, pulled out my phone, called the on-call manager, told him what I'd heard. He brushed it off. Animals get in there sometimes, ignore it. I didn't sleep when I got home that morning. A few nights later, I found a stack of notes on the desk in the security shack, old incident reports. The top sheet was labeled, "Do not lease, Unit 231" in red marker. I flipped through the pages. Tenants had complained for years. Reports of sounds at night, doors unlocking by themselves. One woman claimed her boxes had been rearranged when she returned. Another swore she saw a figure crouched in the back corner. No security footage ever backed any of it up. But eventually, the company stopped renting it out. That explained the empty unit. But I had seen it on the active roster a week ago, and someone had filed a maintenance request. I ran the name listed on the tenant file. No driver's license, no emergency contact, no forwarding address. Just a single name, Reed. No last name. The rent had been paid in cash, dropped off at the office drop box, and only once. The more I looked into it, the more questions I had. That night, I decided to check the cameras. The storage facility had decent surveillance. Every row was covered by at least one camera, and the feed was backed up nightly. I scrolled back to the night I first saw the door open. There was nothing. No footage of the door being unlocked. No one opening it. One frame it was closed. The next, it was open. I jumped ahead to the night I heard the scratching. Again, nothing. Just me walking up to the door. Me knocking, me reacting. No sound, no movement, no scratching. It was like whatever I'd heard wasn't real. But I knew it was. Later that week, I returned to the unit during my shift. This time, I brought bolt cutters. My plan was simple. Cut the lock, open the door, and settle the question once and for all. As soon as I approached, the air around the unit felt heavy, like walking into a basement after a long time. Damp, stale. I cut the lock. The chain fell to the ground with a loud clank that echoed down the row. I rolled up the door, pitch black. I aimed my flashlight into the space, expecting to find, I don't know, a homeless person maybe, a dead animal. Anything to make it make sense. What I saw was nothing. Not just empty, but black. The light from my flashlight didn't even bounce back. It was like shining into a well, an absence of space. Then something stepped forward. Not quickly, not aggressively, just calmly. Like it had all the time in the world. I couldn't see its face, couldn't see anything beyond the silhouette, but I knew it was watching me. I slammed the door shut and ran, called the manager, told him to come immediately. I was done. He didn't believe me, of course, but when he got there, the door was locked again. No sign of forced entry. And the unit? Empty. I quit the next day. The facility still operates, still rents out storage to people with too much junk and not enough space, but Unit 231 remains empty. And sometimes when I drive past it, I wonder who or what filed that maintenance request, and what did it want fixed. A couple years ago, I took a seasonal job as a delivery driver for a third-party courier service contracted by a major online retailer. You've probably seen the blue vans with logos taped on the side and guys in reflective vests tossing packages onto porches like frisbees. That was me for 3 months. My route was rural, long stretches of country roads, dense forests, and a whole lot of gravel driveways. Most days were uneventful, just hours of silence broken up by the occasional barking dog or an overly friendly elderly customer. But there was one house on my route I hated going to. The system just listed it as Route 83, Stop 12. No name, no contact number. GPS always lagged near it. And every single time I dropped a package there, something just felt wrong. The house was deep in the woods, no mailbox, no lights, no sounds. You had to drive half a mile down an overgrown driveway where trees leaned so far and they blocked the sky. And at the end of that tunnel was a house that looked like it hadn't been lived in for decades. But every 2 weeks, there'd be a new package to deliver there. Same sender. No return address. Always light, always marked fragile. The first time I went, I pulled up and didn't even want to get out of the van. The air felt heavier there. The house was completely still. I knocked on the door, no answer. I rang the bell, if you could even call it that. It was one of those old-fashioned push bells that gave off a dull buzz. Still no response. So I left the package on the porch and turned to leave. But as I was walking away, I thought I saw the curtain shift in the front window. Just a little, like someone had peeked out and then closed it again. I convinced myself it was the wind, or my eyes playing tricks, until the next delivery. Same thing. No movement, no sound. But this time, the package was gone. Not thrown aside or chewed up like some deliveries got. It was just gone. As if someone had opened the door and taken it inside, quietly. That happened again and again. No matter what time of day I showed up, morning, afternoon, evening, the package would vanish. No footprints, no tire tracks, nothing to prove anyone lived there at all. Then came the 5th delivery, mid-November. Cold, gray skies and wind shaking the trees. I pulled in, left the van running, and walked the package up to the porch. I froze when I saw the door. It was slightly open, just a crack, like someone had stepped out and forgotten to shut it. I should have left, I know that, but curiosity overrode caution. I called out a soft hello, holding the box like a shield in front of me. No answer. I stepped closer. The door creaked as it moved with the breeze. I could see inside. The hallway was dark, but I could make out furniture under dust cloths, a coat rack leaning sideways, a grandfather clock with no hands. Still holding the package, I knocked on the doorframe. Delivery for Route 83? Silence. Then I heard it. Something from upstairs. A thud. Light but clear. I backed away fast, set the package down, and power walked to the van. I didn't look back until I was in the driver's seat. The door was shut. Completely closed. I know I didn't shut it. I didn't go back for 3 weeks. Luckily, the system rerouted most stops during the holiday rush, and I only picked up the Route 83 deliveries again after Christmas. But the weirdest part? That house got 2 packages in one day. I remember scanning them, confused. One was standard, same type I always delivered. The other one? It was marked return. That had never happened before. No one ever sent anything back from that house, and there was no pickup scheduled. Still, protocol said I couldn't take anything unless it was confirmed. I checked the app. Sure enough, the system listed it as a valid return. Instructions said pick up at doorstep. I drove out there uneasily. The sky was already starting to dim, even though it was only 4 p.m. That tunnel of trees felt even darker than usual. When I pulled up, I stopped cold. There was the package, sitting exactly where I always left mine. But it wasn't the only thing on the porch. There was a small white envelope addressed to me, my full name. No one else knew I delivered to that house, not even my manager. We had dozens of routes. No one tracked who delivered where unless something went wrong. I picked up the envelope with shaking hands and opened it. Inside was a single Polaroid photo. It was me, taken from inside the house. I was standing on the porch holding a package, just like I had during one of the earlier deliveries. The shot was taken through the window, curtain just slightly pulled aside. I didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called the company and told them I had a bad tire and needed a sub. I never went back to that route. I don't know who or what lives at that house. I don't know what was in those packages or who was watching me. But every once in a while, I get a new envelope in the mail. No return address, no note, just more Polaroids. Always of me, always taken from places I don't recognize. And lately, they've been getting closer.